Praying for me, I was praying the same thing as he did. I hope that the things that I say and that we say here will be for our edification and the glory of God. It is good to see all of you here this evening. In spite of the nasty weather we've got out there, it's good to see all of you. I think I had just gotten into the portion of the division of the land last Sunday as we studied. We began in the 13th chapter of Joshua. And the first thing that the Lord says to Joshua, he says, you are old. And even though you are old, there is still much work to be done. There remains yet very much land to possess. And I thought about that for just a minute. I thought, well, certainly they've conquered all of this land. It's out there laid out before them. Look up here on this map. Look at this vast territory. Actually, it goes all the way down to here. Both on the east and the west side of the Jordan River. That's a lot of land. But he says there's much land left to possess. So I thought about that a little bit. And I came up with this. If we buy a house, we technically own the house. We have control of the house. But we don't really possess the house until we start moving some furniture in there. Mama starts cooking meals. Daddy has to cut the grass. That's when you start possessing something. And just because they happen to own and have conquered all this land, I don't see it as Israel really has possessed the land yet, at least to the extent that God instructed them to do. So there's very much land that yet remains. He goes on through the rest of this first 7 verses. He's talking about the regions of the Philistines. They were still very strong along the coast. He talked about all the way up into the region of the Geshurites. The Geshurites were in the region up there in the northern part of the kingdom. In the remainder of the chapter, verses 8 through 33, it talks about all the cities and territories that he's given to Reuben, Gad, the half-tribe of Manasseh. It's noted several times that the Levites, Moses gave them no inheritance, at least not in the sense of land possession. So we'll begin talking a little bit more about the actual possession of the land. He says in verse 7, now therefore divide this land. And that's what we're going to discuss this evening. So in verse 14, he talks about the areas which the children of Israel inherited the land of Canaan, which Eleazar the priest, Joshua the son of Nun, and the heads of the fathers of the tribes of the children of Israel distributed as an inheritance to them. He mentions again in verse 3, the Levites had given no inheritance of the land among them. He says it again in verse 4. And in verse 6, then the children of Judah came to Joshua in Gilgal, and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, said to him, you know the word of the Lord, which the Lord said to Moses, the man of God, concerning you and me in Kadesh Barnea. So Caleb comes to him, representing the tribe of Judah. He brings a delegation with him, and is reminding Joshua about what happened at Kadesh Barnea and the promise that Moses made Moses swore on that day, saying, surely the land where you, and he's talking about Caleb, where your foot has trodden shall be your inheritance, and your children's forever, because you have, listen to this, wholly followed the Lord my God. And now behold, the Lord has kept me alive, as he said, these 45 years, ever since the Lord spoke this word to Moses, while Israel wandered in the wilderness. And now here I am this day, 85 years old. Yes, the Lord kept him alive 40 years in the wilderness, and he watched all of his contemporaries drop dead in that wilderness. He and Joshua came through it. He kept him alive through those 6 years of war and conquering through the land of Israel, the promised land, as we'll call it at this point. And he says, as yet, verse 11, I am as strong this day as on the day that Moses sent me, just as my strength was then, so now is my strength for war, both for going out and coming in. He's letting Joshua know that he is as strong as he ever was. There are still battles to be won, and he's ready to go. He is ready to fight, still at 85 years old. Now therefore, he says in verse 12, give me this mountain of which the Lord spoke in that day. For you heard in that day how the Anakim were there, and that the cities were great and fortified. It may be that the Lord will be with me, and I shall be able to drive them out, as the Lord said. Give me this mountain. I'm ready to fight for it. And Joshua blessed him. Verse 13. And he gave Hebron to Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, as an inheritance. Hebron, therefore, became the inheritance of Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite. Now, where have we heard Kenizzite before? It's all the way back in the 15th chapter of Genesis. Kenizzites had been in this land for, well, since Abraham. So in chapter 15, we begin with the portion that is given to Judah. Now, Judah was the largest of the tribes. I think they had 76,500 soldiers when they entered the land. It tells us in Numbers, the 26th chapter. So we'll notice that they've been given a very large portion of the land. You will see it here. Starts at the tip of the Salt Sea, or the Dead Sea as we call it, runs all the way over to the Great Sea, the Mediterranean Sea. It runs all the way down to here. This is not on the map, but there's a river of Egypt down here. So we cover all of this land, back up bordering Edom and up to the tip, of the southern tip of the Dead Sea. A great amount of land that they're given at this point. Most of the first 12 verses of this chapter gives us the names of the borders and the cities. We won't go into that in any great detail, but when we get to verse 13, it says, now to Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, he gave a share among the children of Judah according to the commandment of the Lord. And he names the city again, Hebron. And Caleb drove out the 3 sons of Anak from there, Sheshai, Ahiman, Talmai, the children of Anak. Then he went up from there to the inhabitants of Debir. And Caleb said, he who attacks Kiriath-Sepher, that is Debir, and takes it, to him I will give Asach, my daughter, as a wife. In verse 17, we first hear Othniel. We'll find out later he is one of the judges of Israel. So Othniel, the son of Kenaz, the brother of Caleb, took it. He gave him Asach, his daughter, as wife. Othniel is his nephew. Verse 18, now it was so, when she came to him and she persuaded him to ask her father for a field. So apparently she has made some arrangements with her new husband, Othniel, for an audience with Caleb. She has a request. So she dismounted from her donkey, and Caleb said to her, what do you wish? And she answered, give me a blessing. Since you have given me land in the south, give me also springs of water. So he gave her the upper springs and the lower springs. We're not told much about this exchange, but I just wanted to point out something here. If I can find Hebron, which is right about here. And I looked on, I don't know how many maps to try to find the city that he's talking about. What is it? Kiriath-Sepher. Try to look that up on a map. As best I can find, it's somewhere down here. We're getting into desert territory at this point. Give me a blessing, since you have given me land in the south, give me also springs of water. And I interpreted that a little bit differently. I'm thinking she's saying, if you're going to put me down here in the desert, how about throwing in a little water to go with it? So he gave her the upper springs and the lower springs. Verse 20, this was the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Judah according to their families. And he goes into great detail about what these borders are. When he gets through, we look over in verse 62, after he's named all these cities, it turns out to be about 103 cities that the tribe of Judah has inherited. And verse 63 is very important, I think. As for the Jebusites and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the children of Judah could not drive them out. But the Jebusites dwell with the children of Judah at Jerusalem to this day. To this day. Apparently to the day of the time when this book was written. We know, if we read further into the Bible, that it'll be another 400 years before the Jebusites are driven from Jerusalem in the day of David. In verse 16, chapter 16 of this book, he talks about the portion of Joseph's descendants. The children of Joseph, that is Ephraim and Manasseh, and we know that Joseph is not technically a tribe because of the double portion blessing that Jacob gave to Joseph at the time before his death. So they draw the next slide. And the description here is given as these two tribes together. It goes through and gives all the borders. And verse 10. And they did not drive out the Canaanites who dwelt in Gezer, but the Canaanites dwell among the Ephraimites to this day and have become forced laborers. You see a pattern developing here? By the way, has anybody got any comments or questions? I do want you to jump right in.
Yeah, I was thinking about Caleb, 85 years old, and he's taking over this mountain where the giants live. And I guess maybe the reason we want something has all the difference in the world, makes all the difference in the world. I was sort of contrasting with Lot, as he looked over that plain and saw that it was good for his income, I guess. And, he wanted it because of that wealth that he saw that maybe he could gain there. And Caleb is wanting this mountain because God promised it to him. I mean, it doesn't look like he said, God, give me this mountain. First it says God. It looks like God promised him the mountain because he was there. And Caleb made, I want this mountain because God promised it to me. It's almost like instead of looking at the difficulty of what he had laid before him, he says, God's promised this to me. Just an amazing faith, it seems like to me.
Yes, sir. Good comment. Donald, you had something?
Looking at the whole, stepping back, looking at this, in your opinion, to me, it seems like it's going pretty orderly, because with this amount of people and all the stuff, the borders, they seem to have things well in hand, if you will, to a certain degree.
Yes.
And of course, there's going to be a complaint, and then, there's going to be some things. But for the most part, it makes you wonder if one of the reasons it went well is because, here's your opportunity. What are you going to do with it? And so they have to work for it. And just like Barry was mentioning, Caleb had that right spirit. I can clean this area up or clean it out, and hey, I'm ready to go to work. And if they had all had that same kind of mindset and said, okay, God has warned us about the influence. If we don't, that should have been a high priority with them. It's like, we do not leave people here because it will be, and as it turned out with their history, it did make God was obviously right. Had they listened to him, maybe things could have been, much better, just saying.
Yes. Yes, very true. Wes?
Just to I guess, add to the same point, when they first came to Kadesh Barnea, and they came back, gave the report, Caleb said, this land God wants to give us, let's go right now, I'm ready. The wilderness wandering happens. 45 years go by. They come back, and Caleb says, give me this land, I'm ready. God help us to have not just a faith, but a faith that 45 years can't dim. And then don't you love, in chapter 15, one of the favorite phrases there is in verse 14, Caleb drove thence the 3 sons of Anak. And he lists them and so on.
Yes.
Okay. 85 years old, like you said, 85 years old. And his fire isn't diminished, and his view isn't clouded. God help me to have that kind of spirit.
Caleb was ready 45 years ago. He is still ready. He still wants the land that God has promised him. He hasn't forgotten. May we never forget the promise that God has made to us. Was there anybody else that had a comment or a question that they wanted to ask? Okay. So then we turn to the portion designated for Joseph's descendants. Well, I've already started on that one, actually. I think we're getting to Manasseh at this point. And there was also a lot for the tribe of Manasseh. Manasseh was the son of children. His children were mature. And these are the ones who were first given land on the eastern side of the Jordan River. Now they're going to distribute the part on the western side. Now, in the middle of all this, we have something that needs to be taken care of. It talks about the daughters of Zelophehad, and they come to Eleazar, reminding him of the promises that and the settlement that was made back in Numbers, the 27th chapter. Daughters' names are Mela, Noah, Hogla, Milcah, and Tirzah. And they came near before Eleazar the priest, before Joshua the son of Nun, and before the rulers, saying, "The Lord commanded Moses to give us an inheritance among our brothers. Therefore, according to the commandment of the Lord, he gave them an inheritance among their brothers." He divides this land of Manasseh into 10 parts, 9 to the sons of Manasseh and 1 to the daughters of Zelophehad. So they received an inheritance among his sons, and the rest of Manasseh's sons had the land of Gilead. Verse 7, he goes through, as much as we have so far, the names and borders of each individual city. In verse 12, once again, the pattern repeats itself. Yet the children of Manasseh could not drive out the inhabitants of those cities, but the Canaanites were determined to dwell in that land. This is going to be a problem, a thorn in the side of Israel for their entire existence. Verse 13, they forced them into labor, but they did not drive them out. So beginning in verse 14, we have a complaint lodged by the children of Joseph. And I think this is more of a complaint among the children of Ephraim than Joseph and Manasseh as a whole. They say, the lot you have given us is not enough. Why have you given us only one lot and one share to inherit, since we, listen to this now, we are a great people? Does that mean they're great in terms of their number? Certainly not as large as Judah, but you look at the land. Look here, Ephraim is here, and Manasseh is here. That's a pretty good chunk of land. We are a great people. What do you think they meant by that? Think they meant they deserved a lot more? Verse 15, Joshua answered them and said, "If you are a great people, then go up to the forest country and clear a place for yourself there in the land of the Perizzites and the giants, since the mountains of Ephraim are too confined for you." But they persist. They say the mountain country is not enough for us. And all the Canaanites who dwell in the land of the valley have chariots of iron. Where have we heard that before? Have they forgotten what happened to the chariots of iron at Hazor? Children of Israel beat the Canaanites and burned their chariots of fire. So they're worried about chariots of fire. That's chariots of iron, not chariots of fire. My head's stuck in a movie for some reason. And Joshua spoke to the house of Joseph, to Ephraim and Manasseh, saying, "You are a great nation. You are a great people. You have great power. And you shall have not only one lot, you'll have the mountain country. You'll cut the trees down, and its farthest extent shall be yours. And you shall drive out the Canaanites, though they have iron chariots, and they're strong." So now we turn to the remaining tribes. Now the whole congregation, chapter 18, verse 1. The whole congregation of the children of Israel assembled together at Shiloh and set up the tabernacle of meeting there, and the land was subdued before them. But there remained among the children of Israel 7 tribes which had not yet received their inheritance. 7 tribes have not received the allotment. And Joshua rebukes those 7 tribes. Why do you neglect to possess the land God has given you? Why do you think they had not already gone out and possessed the land that God had given them? They might have had a lot of reasons, but the biggest reason was neglect. That was the bottom line. I don't know what they were doing. Maybe they were still just wandering around. That's a problem today. God's work suffers because of Christian neglect. He tells them, pick 3 men from each tribe to survey the remaining land. Survey into 7 parts and bring it to me. This is Joshua talking. I will cast lots for you. So God would guide them through the final appointments. So they go through, they survey the land, they bring the results to Joshua, and we get into Benjamin's territory now. Now the lot of the tribe of the children of Benjamin came up according to their families, and the territory of their lot came out between the children of Judah and the children of Joseph. Benjamin. It might be the smallest area of land in the allotment. And it goes through and names several places within the area of Benjamin. These are real places. They're not symbolic. They're not spiritual references. What God promised to Abraham was a real land. And they're naming each of these cities and these borders. They are real. The city of Jerusalem was real. The valley of Hinnom was real. In verse 19 it says, the second lot came out for Simeon, for the tribe of the children of Simeon, according to their families, and their inheritance was within the inheritance of the children of Judah. If you look down here on the map, it looks like Simeon is plopped right down in the middle of Judah. So what has happened here? Apparently, in the initial allotment, they gave Judah a lot more land than they actually needed. So Simeon becomes essentially the center part of Judah. They were given certain territory in the Negev, that is the desert region, down in the southern section of Judah.
Alan, do you think this has anything to do with Jacob's, the last words he said to his sons, and he talked to Simeon and Levi in chapter 29 of Genesis? In verse 7 it says, I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. Both Levi and Simeon are now, within other territories.
Yes. I think every allotment of land reflects the character of the people, of the sons of Jacob, and what they receive. Judah gets a magnificent large section of land. Ephraim and Manasseh, even on the western side of the Jordan River, that is some of the most fertile land in that region. So I think you're exactly right. They're getting essentially what Jacob said in his blessing. The third lot came out for the children of Zebulun according to their families, and the border of their inheritance was as far as Sarid. He describes their border. Let's see if I can find him on the map here. Zebulun. I got to squint to see this thing. There we go, right up there in the top. There are a couple of cities that we might note up here in Zebulun. Gath Hepher was the home of Jonah the prophet. In 2 Kings, the 14th chapter. And by New Testament days, the city of Nazareth lay in the territory that once belonged to Zebulun. There's also a place called Bethlehem in Zebulun, though it's not associated with the one that we know as the birthplace of Christ. So we'll continue. We'll talk about Issachar's territory. In Joshua, the 19th chapter, in verses 17, it says, the fourth lot came out to Issachar for the children of Issachar according to their families. And their territory went to Jezreel and included, I don't even think I can pronounce that one, Shunem and Cheseloth. And it names several borders and towns within that area. And there is Issachar right there. And then we'll talk about Asher's territory. Asher received the fifth lot. Some of the notable places in the territory of Asher are Mount Carmel. Do you remember what happened at Mount Carmel? That's where Elijah confronted the prophets of Baal. Asher. It's right up here. It's bordered on the Great Sea. Comes over, butts up against Naphtali, borders Zebulun and Manasseh. Naphtali. The sixth lot came out for Naphtali. His territory and Asher's were the two northernmost tribes in the land. There's some prominent cities in Naphtali. Kedesh is one. There's also a city of refuge. Hazor is one where Joshua had destroyed the entire city on the mound, about 200 acres worth. And the place where Deborah and Barak defeated Sisera. We'll read that later in this lesson, or in this study. And then we have Dan's territory, the seventh lot. His territory was situated between Ephraim on the north and Judah on the south. The eastern border was the western boundary of Benjamin, and the western boundary was the Mediterranean. Where is Dan? There he is. That's this small area down here. So finally, they have made the divisions of the land. And now we'll talk about one other thing, that is Joshua's inheritance. When all the territories had been distributed, the Israelites gave Joshua a specific inheritance among them, just as God had commanded. They gave him the town that he requested, Timnath-Serah, in the hill country of Ephraim. That was his own tribe. He built that city and he dwelt in it. It was in the same country that he told the children of Joseph, that is Ephraim and Manasseh, to build and possess. So he wasn't telling Ephraim and Manasseh to go out and do anything that he wouldn't do himself. So these are the tribal territories that Eleazar the priest, Joshua, and the heads of the tribes distributed by lot. The work was done at Shiloh in the presence of the Lord, at the entrance of the tent to the tent of meeting. And so this task was finished. So now it's up to the tribes to go and fight and possess the land. We'll also note that in addition to all this land that Israel now owns and is instructed to possess, we still have Moab and Edom will be bordering the entire land, or bordering the eastern side of the land. They're not Israelites, but they are blood related to Israel. God gave them their territory, and he has forbidden the Israelites to drive them out. So they'll continue to be neighbors throughout the rest of Old Testament history. And we'll study more about them later. Any questions about the division of the land? Anybody have any comments they want to make? We will barely get into the inheritance for the Levites, but we're going to forge ahead anyway. Cities of refuge. Joshua, the 20th chapter. The Lord also spoke to Joshua, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel, saying, appoint for yourselves cities of refuge, of which I spoke to you through Moses." What is a city of refuge in your reading? What do you understand the city of refuge is for? Yes, sir, Mark.
If I remember right, it's when someone was to cause the death of another by accident, they would go to the city of refuge, and they would have to stay there, and they would be safe there from the avenger of blood.
If somebody who was actually guilty of murder, could he go to the city of refuge?
He could go, but he couldn't stay.
He could not stay. There had to be a trial. And if he was found guilty, then he was turned over to the avenger of blood. Who is the avenger of blood? Next of kin. Kind of like the way our system works today. You're accused of a crime, you have to be tried. If you're found guilty of that crime, you're turned over to the magistrate. Sentence is pronounced. Even in our society today, if you accidentally kill someone, there's an investigation. It's determined whether you had any fault in it or not. You may not have intended to kill somebody. Just by driving down the road, driving drunk, has a wreck, someone dies. There's a price still to be paid. May not have intended to kill anyone, but it happened nonetheless.
Well, I'm sure this is a point you're going to make, but when you look at the cities, they are spread out purposefully. I think with the idea in mind of access, three on the west side of Jordan, three on the Transjordan. And all of that's likewise, God's plan, God's mercy, God's provision.
So they set apart in Kadesh in Galilee, in the hill country of Naphtali, and Shechem in the hill country of Ephraim, and Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the hill country of Judah. And beyond the Jordan, east of Jericho, they appointed Bezer in the wilderness on the tableland from the tribe of Reuben, Ramoth and Gilead from the tribe of Gad, and Golan in Bashan from the tribe of Manasseh. These were the cities designated for all the people of Israel and for the strangers sojourning among them, that anyone who killed a person without intent could flee there, that he might not die by the hand of the avenger of blood till he stood before the congregation. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you see how God has things organized, and you see justice, you actually see a system, if you will, that, that takes care of, because without this vast number of people, you're gonna have, unfortunately, you're gonna have situations that will arise, but there's ways that you deal with it. It's not like, what we do, the situation pops up, we accidentally, it was a total accident, what do? God has already, he's laid out, so that they and you would hope that they would appreciate that God's thinking about them in such a way as to give them a system that's fair, justice, and everything. It's not just kind of just thrown together. It actually has purpose and function.
Yeah, we have pointed this out before. This is a nation now. This is a nation with law. The law has been carefully detailed, given to Moses. Moses has given it to the children of Israel. So it's not like Canaan in the years past, where each area and tribe was just doing what they wanted and getting worse and worse and worse because they had no law. Now they have law in this land. And Wes, I think, has already pointed this out. They were given 6 cities. There were 3 on each side of the river, and they were positioned in such a place that anyone who in the land of Israel who needed protection in these cities could flee to that city and have a fair trial and wouldn't be chased by the avenger of blood, I guess is what it is. We have reached the end of this lesson, so I want to thank you very much for your attention. Thank you guys for commenting, and we'll continue with this on Sunday.